Hi everyone, I'm Lucy from Sew Essential and I'm here today to do a Q&A session with you. So previously people have put their questions in the comments below one of our videos and I've worked my way through, and I love doing these videos because it means I get to talk about what you really want to hear. So please do pop your questions in the comments below and I'll answer them in future videos for you. As always, any of our products I talk about, I'll put the links to below, and I'll also put the link to our website below as well, so you can get on and have a look there. And if you like what you see, please like and subscribe, because every Friday I bring you a video packed full of sewing goodness. Before I get started, I'll just show you what I'm wearing, which is this Jarly 3355 hoodie pattern. Made up in our gorgeous soft sweatshirt fabric, which is fleece lined, comes in a range of beautiful colours and is Okiotech certified as well. And since I made this hoodie, I've just been wearing it so much. It's freezing here in the UK and this fabric really is lovely and warm and comes in that gorgeous range of colours, so I'll pop the links to those below. But yeah, let's get started with the questions. So the first question is by somebody who goes by the name of Sparnitz, and they asked, do I do any crafts other than sewing? So up until recently I didn't, but over the summer, once we'd sort of got over that crazy period that we went through last year, we actually managed to go on a little holiday in the UK when you were allowed to, and I decided that I just wanted to have a go at hand embroidery while I was on holiday, just so I could still craft. I didn't want to take my sewing machine with me, and I found beautiful patterns on DMC website. On the DMC website, they do loads of free patterns on there, which is a great way to try a new craft and get started. They do cross stitch and a couple of other things as well, but you download the pattern, you get instructions for how to sew the stitches, so they have like a little key chart where they show you each type of stitch you need to use, and you also get a list of all the different coloured threads that you need to recreate the picture as well. And we sell all of those threads on our website. We sell the full DMC hand embroidery range, so you can just use the codes on the key to buy the threads that you need. We also sell the little wooden embroidery hoops, and we sell some nice good quality sort of patchwork plain cottons as well that you can use as well. So I haven't got it with me here today, but I made a really lovely picture. It's not perfect, it's the first time I'd had a go at hand embroidery, so you know, I learned a lot by doing it, but I just made a lovely little floral design. I'll try and get an image up on the screen when we edit the video, for my mum for her 65th birthday, and she's got it framed now on the wall in her kitchen, which is lovely. But it was just the most wonderfully therapeutic, relaxing thing to do. I sat outside quite often, looking at the view, just sort of doing my embroidery, and I quite liked having something that I could do on those days at home as well, where I just didn't want to get all my sewing stuff out and get stuck into dressmaking. Having said that, I haven't found time to do anything else since. I did also want to do some knitting, but that never really got off the ground. I've got all the stuff at home. I was going to just knit a scarf just to get started, and I see some of the things people make now. You know, there's some really modern contemporary knitting companies out there, and I'd love to make myself some nice cardigans or jumpers, but yeah, time isn't something that I've got in very plentiful supply at the moment, I'm afraid. But I really thoroughly enjoyed that hand embroidery project, and yeah, if you just get on the DMC website and have a look at their free pattern bank, you'll find that there, and I'll try and pop a link to the DMC threads as well, and like the hoops and stuff below as well. The next question from Anne Parsons was, I would love to know, do you have any tips how to get perfect ruffles and not end up with pleats? So yeah, I think it's quite difficult, isn't it, Anne, when you're gathering and doing gathering stitches to get the result that you want. Sometimes they move around and that sort of thing. So my top tips really are to never use one line of stitches for gathering. Sometimes people just try and do one line of long stitches when they're gathering, and that just doesn't give you enough control really. So I'd always say do a minimum of 2 lines of stitching, 1/4 of an inch apart, so you'll get 2 within a seam allowance, because 1/4 plus 1/4 is 1/2 inch, so that will sit within a normal 5/8 seam allowance. You could even do 3, and I've done that before, and I think that gives you a lot more control as well. You could consider adjusting the tension on your machine when you're sewing your gathering stitches as well. And then once you've sewn them and got good results and distributed them evenly, when you're sewing them into position, I would recommend like maybe using an awl or a purple fang, which is a little tool that I've talked about before on the channel. I'll pop a link to that below, just to ease the gathers under the foot as you sew and keep them in the position that you want them in. The other thing you can do to get really good gathering stitches is you can actually use an overlocker. Not many people know that, but I did a video a few weeks ago where I demonstrated that technique, and that produces really nice, neat, even gathers. And then the other thing you can consider as well is you can actually get gathering feet for sewing machines. So they are designed to do that job and gather the fabric, and they do it beautifully. And you can also use them to gather the fabric and attach it to the non-gathered piece of fabric at the same time. And I did actually demonstrate that in a video previously. They're fantastic, those feet are. So if you are doing a lot of gathering and you want really excellent results, you could look into whether there's one of those feet for your machine, and we sell a really wide range of feet on our website, so you can just pop on and have a look at those. I'll pop the links below. And then somebody else asked, so she said she loves a curved hem, and she wants to know how would I hack a pattern to have a curved hem at the bottom. And to be honest, I thought I would just literally get a piece of tissue pattern paper. I use the Burda tissue, which I love. I would just place that underneath the pattern piece, cut the pattern piece out, place the tissue underneath, and then I would just extend the hemline down into the curve that I wanted. You could use a French curve to do that, or you could, I mean, sometimes you can manage to use like a dinner plate or something, because obviously if you draw it freehand you might not get it symmetrical and even. Or you could draw one side, fold the paper over, trace the other side so it does match and it is even. But that's as simple as I would make it. And then I would just match the back piece to that as well. Just check everything matched up, lay your back piece over the front piece, add your curved bit on the bottom again, and then, you know, that's as simple as it would be. So I hope that works out for you and you manage to give that a go. Jill Dixon wanted to see how to French seam an armhole. Well, I've done that video, Jill. I've done it now probably since you asked your question, so I will pop a link to that below. But it really is, it seems like a complicated thing when you try and imagine how to do it, but actually all you do is you start by setting your sleeve in. Instead of setting it in right sides together, you set it in wrong sides together first, and you sew a 1/4 inch seam, and then you push the sleeve back through the armhole, and then you sew right sides together with the 3/8 inch seam, if your seam allowance is 5/8, of course, and that will give you a beautifully French seamed armhole. But I will put the video below because lots of people really enjoyed that and found it really useful, and obviously it's just easier when you get to see it in action, isn't it? So we had another question who said, how do I manage my time? How do I manage to fit my sewing in? Obviously I talk a lot about the fact that I've got a young family. I'm helping to run my family business. You know, I think a lot of us are like that these days. We've got lots and lots of different responsibilities, and it is quite hard sometimes to find the time to sew. But what I've always done, I am a creature of habit. I like routine, and I know if I get into a routine with things, generally I'll sort of stick quite well to it, and then, you know, I start to see the results then, and then that motivates me to carry on with the routine. So what I've always done is I've always allocated a few evenings a week to sew. So I get the kids into bed, you know, have tea, tidy up, do all that stuff, and then as soon as I get the opportunity I just go and get on the machine and get going, and that seems to work really well for me. Sometimes, you know, I really don't feel like it, I'm really tired, but I know that once I sit down and get started, I will start to feel motivated. But I also don't push myself too hard, because I think sometimes I sit down and I think, oh God, I'm just not feeling it tonight. And if that's the case, I might just do, you know, half an hour or so and think, well, at least I've done something and I've made some progress. And then something I've got better at doing recently as well is when I get little windows of time that aren't in that little allocated evening sewing time, you know, at the weekend sometimes we'll go out for a walk with the kids, come back, they all go off and do their own things, they love computer games and all that sort of stuff, and I think, well, actually I can do a quick half an hour now, and I've got a bit better at sort of, I used to poo-poo those time slots and think, well, I'm not going to achieve anything in that time, what's the point in getting my machine out, because I haven't got a dedicated sewing room. I do have to get all my stuff out every time I want to sew, which is another little barrier, but I've learned that actually getting my machine out is like a 2-minute job, and in half an hour I can actually get quite a lot done, and sometimes I can get those annoying things done, like unpicking, for example. You know, if I've made a mistake and I know I need to unpick something, I can get that out the way in that time slot, and then when my sewing time slot comes in the evenings, I'm ready to sew. The other thing I do sometimes is try and cut out in those little windows of time, because yeah, on those evening slots, then if I've got everything cut out and ready to go, I can just start sewing and I feel really motivated about that. So yeah, that's pretty much sort of what I do. I mean, my timetable is changing all the time at the moment, because we're now homeschooling again, and you know, juggling a lot more at home again than we were previously. But I just always try, for me, like, I am a creature of habit, and just having some sort of routine in place, but like not being too hard on myself if it does fall apart a bit, or like I need to flex and change it. I do find that the routine really helps. And then another question I had was, how did I learn to sew? So that's a great question. Initially, my mother-in-law, who founded the business with my husband, she showed me how to sew my first couple of garments. So one of them is the red dress, which you often see on the dress form. I don't think it's quite in shot today. And I sewed like a really simple little cotton skirt. She kind of came round and like held my hand through those first 2 makes and told me what to do, so I just got used to the machine, and then after that I just, you know, got on with it myself. I did ask Angela for lots of advice at that point, like my first probably year of sewing, you know, quite regularly I'd be bringing something into work and saying, well, how does this work, and what does this bit mean, and I'm not sure how to do this, and what would you do? But I think the best way that I've learned really is just by doing. So I've sort of got my way through those projects. I've had the advice. I've never had any like formal lessons or anything. And then you just get to a point where your confidence starts to come, and you start to recognise like some of the more common tasks that you've done time and time again, and you get to a point where you can start to problem solve yourself, and you can start to use, you know, common sense when it comes to solving some of those problems and working out the best way to do something. So I definitely think, you know, to anyone out there, I know there's a lot of people at the moment probably considering learning to sew because we've stuck at home so much, and you know, it's nice to have some other hobbies, but I just think, just get stuck in, just have a go. And also there is a huge bank of videos on YouTube that's so useful. We've done loads of tutorials on our channel that you might find useful, but there's lots of others out there as well. I'm always like reading up, googling things, you know. Often I you know, if I've got a bit of a conundrum, I'll do a Google, have a read around a few blog posts. I never just take one person as gospel. I kind of have a look at a few things and think, oh, everyone's saying a similar thing. And the other thing is just always test on scraps of fabric. I remember my mother-in-law's mantra was always test on a scrap of fabric. And when I first started sewing, I was impatient, and I didn't want to be testing on scraps. I just wanted to be doing the project. But I've learned that actually testing on the scraps of fabric is a brilliant way to make sure you get the results you want. It doesn't take very long, and it just gives you that confidence when you go to the real garment to do that technique that you've got it right and you know what you're doing. So, but yeah, if you're thinking about starting to sew, just do it. It will be the best thing you ever do, and just fantastic for, you know, way to sort of like get through these difficult times and just give yourself something that's therapeutic and enjoyable and creative, just to escape really what's going on at the moment. So thank you again to everybody who sent in such brilliant questions. I really appreciate it, and please do leave your questions in the comments below so that we can continue this series for you and keep answering all those burning questions. As I mentioned at the start of the video, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.